What's good, guys? Just Prince TV here. Now, did you notice one thing about Nas? Ever since he made the King Disease 1, King Disease 2, he's been on a rampage of nonstop or constantly mentioning Tupac. Tupac's been heavily on Nas's brain. And I try to figure out why. Why is Nas constantly talking about Tupac? Um, this issue or this Tupac stuff is past history. Is real past history. Now, part of me thinks, hey, Nas is an old school artist, right? So maybe he doesn't have much to talk about other than bringing up the past sometimes and talking about Pac. But when you think of Tupac, you think of Biggie and Pac, right? But Nas seems to be hell bent on mentioning his name with Tupac. Every interview, um, a lot of references on King's Disease 1 and King's Disease 2 is talking about Tupac. His incident that he had with Tupac. If you didn't know better, the way Nas is talking, you would think Nas was the original guy Tupac was beefing with, not Biggie, you know? And Nas seems to be really forcing you to mention his name with Tupac when it's not really supposed to be like that. People will always think of Biggie and Tupac, vice versa. And he even had the song Death Row East, and his brother is like, I'm spoken on that Death Row East pack. And when somebody says that, you already know what it is, right? So his brother, by even saying that, is disrespecting, you know, that whole movement, that whole death row stuff, and Nas seems to be like, we met Pac, we did this, and he constantly talk about it. In his interviews, he's talking about meeting Tupac and his confrontation with Tupac. I think it's a little bit of him and the media constantly bringing that up. But to me, man, I think Nas needs to drop the whole Tupac issue, man. It's like he's holding some guilt in. Like he never got to talk about this too much, so he's saying it a lot now. Like he has a lot of stuff to get off his chest. And me knowing the guy that Nas is, this is very unlike Nas to keep talking about the same issue constantly. That confrontation he had with Tupac or that meeting must have been a life changing event. This is the same guy that said, out of his own words, that Tupac is a god, right? Nas said that, and you know how I feel. I always say Nas is the greatest rapper of all time, but the fact that he had so much respect for Tupac goes to show you how much of a captivating and influential person Tupac was. I always said Tupac was the most influential rapper of all time. He had the biggest influence on just about any rapper. He was one of those dudes that step into the room, you can't help but gravitate towards him, whether it was negative or positive. He always gets your attention, and I think that's one of the things that Nas is realizing, that hey, man, a couple years went by, and I still can't stop talking about and having Tupac on the brain. But me personally, I think it's time for him to let it go. And don't bring too much Tupac stories up too much. I think it's just time to move on. I mean, we already know the story. It's ancient history, so why not let this story go, But we'll see what happens if King Disease 3 drops and he's still making references to Tupac again. Because ever since his last two albums, he's been heavy Tupac influenced and heavy Tupac talking about. Just Prince TV out, man. Peace.